This episode of JJ Meets World is brought to you by Natalie Deutsch of Hatch Realty. Natalie has a proven track record to get your home sold faster and for more money. She is consistently focused on her clients' needs and wants throughout the entire process and make sure that they are well taken care of. If you're looking to buy or sell, reach out to Natalie today. On average, Natalie sells a home every 3.74 days. That's at least 2 a week. And last year, Natalie earned her clients on average over $4,000 above list price on their homes. And you don't have to take our word for it. Here's some of the great reviews Natalie has received. I was overwhelmingly impressed with Natalie and all the Hatch team. She was very responsive and responded to all of the emails within an hour. She gave great advice and encouragement from the listing and pictures, the offer, and all the closing details. The marketing team knew exactly how to promote my property, and I was pleased by how soon and easily my property received an offer. I was actually dreading selling my condo, and Natalie did such an awesome job that I felt like I really didn't need to do anything. The thing I most appreciated was that she really listened to what I wanted to do and respected my decisions. I would definitely recommend Natalie and all the Hatch Realty team. They made this process so wonderful. That was from Diane. So listen, if you're in the mood to buy or sell a home, give Natalie a call right now. You can reach her at 701-388-9338. Natalie, Natalie, at hatchrealtyfm.com, or you can go to livefargomorehead.com. That's livefargomorehead.com and find out some information. Huge thanks to Natalie Deutsch of Hatch Realty for sponsoring JJ Meets World.
1, 2, 3, 4. J.J. Gordon, sort of like that Indiana Jones, in that he's always sniffing out his next adventure. Yes, he is. He's always interviewing guests so he can have them on his show and they can talk about pop culture, arts, and leisure. J.J. has his flag unfurled and he likes his french fries curled, and he's fun and then he twirled as he goes to meet the world. He will march into the rain even if his ankle sprained. Take a peek inside his brain. This podcast is called JJ Meets World.
Emily Beck, welcome to JJ Meets World. How are you today?
Well, I'm delightful. Thank you for having me.
So I follow you on Facebook, and so I keep up to date on most things. You really enjoy going to England. Those, I think, are your most excited posts. I think I see the most exclamation points on those posts. Tell me about your most recent trip.
Let's see. My most recent trip would have been last September. And yeah, it's a place that I fell in love with. I had a chance to study abroad when I was at MSUM and live over there for a short period of time. And I kind of felt like, hey, this feels like home in a way maybe home hadn't always. So I go over there and visit friends and just tool around when I can make ends meet. When I can make it work. Yeah,
nice and expensive. Is there a particular part of England that you like to enjoy?
Yeah, the city of London it's my favorite place to be in the whole world.
Well, and you've got a background in musical theater, too, so I'm sure you spend some time in the West End.
I do. I go there, and besides seeing friends and catching up with that, I just binge on the arts. Everything from art galleries to lots of theater and musical theater. I've even checked out their film festival a few times.
Cool.
So I just go there, and it's like a week of give me all of the arts.
Right, and it's all like, here, Uncle Sam, these are all write-offs, because it's research for things that I'm going to be doing later on. Did you see any shows last time you were there?
I saw Othello at the Shakespeare Globe, and Mark Rylance was doing Iago.
Oh man!
And it was it was like a performance I've never seen before. Yeah, it was incredible, kind of transcendent, if I'm being honest.
That's awesome.
It was.
Isn't it amazing to see somebody who's so good at their craft on stage? I saw Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart together. They were doing a repertory show, and it was Waiting for Godot. And I can't remember what the name of the other show was, but I saw the other show, and Billy Crudup was in that same cast too, and it was amazing because Sir Ian forgot a line.
Oh, really?
And had to call line from stage, and I remember, so he never breaks, right? It doesn't become this thing where it's like line. He just casually goes line, and you hear someone yell from the backstage like, and he wasn't that man. And then he goes, and he wasn't that man. And it goes immediately into it. I was floored by it. Just watching it, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm seeing something amazing.
Sir Ian.
Wizard, you shall not pass. So, Emily, tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, MSUM, time in Trollwood.
Yeah. So I grew up in Valley City, North Dakota. And I was fortunate enough that my mother would let me come and run amok here in Fargo during summers in high school so I could do Trollwood and take classes there and be in the show, which I think is where we first met.
What shows did you do?
Let's see. My first show was Jesus Christ Superstar, and then Damn Yankees, and then Crazy for You would have been the 3 shows that I...
Well, that's fun.
Yeah.
Damn Yankees was such a fun show out of Trollwood.
I agree.
There was a sort of little magic that went along with that, and I remember. Why are you laughing?
I'm just thinking of all of the male nudity. Isn't there like a whole scene where like those dudes are
the locker room,
sequence? I just remember seeing my buddies like Jason Jacobson, I think, was on stage there, and a few other guys. That's why I was smiling. Was that scene was playing back in my head, and I just remember the scandalized adults who were taking issue with it in the audience, and I thought it was fantastic. I was like, come on, guys! If anything, they should have shown everything.
Just like really push the envelope, and it should get real edgy.
Bryce Richardson out there.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say because like Alex Davey was in that cast, and I always think like, well, this is probably the only time Alex Davey is ever going to wear a baseball uniform. And I think that's fun. Like, and there were no pickup games of baseball played like while the Damn Yankees cast was there.
Oh,
it was
gosh,
more like, hey, you guys, listen, I got a live recording of Rent. Let's sing.
You guys want to play some Magic the Gathering?
Yeah, right.
That's exactly what was happening backstage. Yeah, no, we weren't sporty types.
No. And that's fine.
Yeah.
And look what it's produced. Some pretty amazing people, right? So you did some Trollwood, and then you chose to go to MSUM.
I did. And initially I was an English major there. But within a very short period of time, I took a film history class from Rusty Castleton, and he just sort of like set my brain on fire. I'd always loved movies my entire life, and I hadn't really thought about it as a career path, if I'm being honest, but he kind of opened up this entire new world for me. And I would say within a semester, I was a film major. So
I took Rusty's film history course, and one of the things that blew my mind is when he was talking about Napoleon, the first widescreen movie, and then how they projected it on 3. They filmed it with that apparatus that filmed with 3 cameras at a time, so they could have 3 separate projectors that were all showing like essentially the same image in what was the first widescreen, and how the last reel of the film they put a red filter over the left-hand projector and a blue filter over the right, so it looked like the French flag. And I was just like, oh my God, this is blowing my mind. What ingenuity. And Rusty Castleton, what an encyclopedia of film knowledge. Holy moly.
Oh, absolutely. You could ask him anything and it would be right off the tip of his tongue. But he also really loved his students. So we always felt like that. And so, all in all, my experience at MSUM was pretty fantastic.
Rusty and his cohort, Ted Larson, had this amazing joint film collection, one of the largest in the world at the time, of actual 35 millimeter prints, rare stuff that a lot of other people didn't even have. And I've always just loved thinking about that, as a collector myself, not of film prints, but of just other stuff. The passion and what those 2 guys had to do to be able to get these things, to find them. There was really no internet at that time to be talking with dealers. So you had to drive across the country and find deals on old film prints. And I thought that was really cool. And then I never took classes from Rusty, but when I worked at Morrid Community Access TV, he was on the board of directors there. And so I interacted with him on a regular basis, and we would just talk film. I mean, every board meeting I'd come into, he and I would just find ourselves talking about a Ladislaus Starowich movie or some other thing, right? And I'm always drawn to people who are down with talking about the thing they're interested in at depth. And he was someone who was always really good at that.
Rusty and I years ago did a film course for kids at the Fargo Theatre one summer. And he wanted me to portray a character named Movie Max, who was like from the silent era. So
I didn't realize that Rusty came up with that character. Okay, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm. And so I did that with Rusty, and that was a lot of fun. I was ready to be done with it by the end of the day. That's for sure.
All those screaming kids in the Fargo Theater.
Well, it was more like to appreciate that era of filmmaking in the 21st century, like with kids who are used to PlayStations and junk like that. It was really hard to get them to focus in on like, okay, so this is what Harold Lloyd was trying to do here.
Yeah.
And Rusty was a wonderful educator, but I think he gave them more credit than they deserved, because what they wanted to watch was like Three Stooges stuff.
Sure,
and they wanted to watch people like get hit in the head. That was their thing. And Rusty really wanted them to walk away with an appreciation for this type of filmmaking. And so it was fun times though. I had a good time. And then did you work? You worked at West Acres Cinema, right?
I did, yeah.
Was
for a few
it
years after
Marcus
school.
the whole time, or was it CEC when you started?
I was there in the transition. So my first couple years there was CEC, and then I was there when we transitioned over to Marcus for like a year and a half or 2 years. Yeah,
which is kind of exciting, right? To like be at a time when, okay, so another company's buying out this big company, and like, what are the changes going to be?
Yeah, and like at a pretty early age, it gave me a glimpse behind the curtain for like corporate strategy and things like that I probably wouldn't have had at 22 or 23. CEC was kind of like this kind of cool mom and pop type organization. Not that they were that small, but they were definitely operated really different than when big corporate Marcus came to town and kind of shook things up. It was good.
Were you there during the remodel too? Like when they built the...
I was there when we built.
Yep,
I was there when the Ultra Screen was built, but not to the remodel where it is today. Yeah,
it's interesting. I remember when that building was like the cheap seats. When there was West Acres, but then there's West 1, 2, 3, which is 3 screens that were cheap seats. And my mom used to talk about how back in the day when the theater was actually in the mall, and it's where like the Dakota Clinic is now in West Acres, and she worked there for a little while. And then I think she said it was 2 screens at that time. And then they built the building outside that was in the parking lot, which people said, this is so far away from everything. No one will ever want to come out here.
It seems like if you're a movie buff, it's sort of a rite of passage to work at a movie theater for sure. And JJ and I have both worked at the Fargo Theater, which you're the executive director of. And I got to tell you, working at that theater, I have got some amazing memories working at that theater with the group of people that were there, and just getting to be in that historic space where so much of Fargo history is just it's saturated with Fargo history.
Oh, I agree. And you feel that every day, don't you, when you're there?
Absolutely.
You really do. And there's something about that place that attracts like the best people too, whether it be our regular audience members or the people that work there. They all kind of just love it. And then that all kind of brings us together. It's like a weird gravitational force.
So let's talk about working at the Fargo Theater, specifically about being the executive director of the last great movie palace of Fargo. So, because at one time there's 7? Was it 7?
Yeah,
total?
I've seen photos. They were all over downtown.
Yeah, there's like a
Beautiful.
palace and the Lark. So you're holding on to like history a little bit, but also needing to progress forward. I mean, credit where credit's due. Margie Bailey did some amazing things with the Fargo Theater, and pretty much, not single-handedly, but definitely steered the ship to save it from where it was. If that group of people hadn't stepped in the late 90s, that would be a condo right now, easily. And but now you're at the reins. And so what's it like moving forward into the 21st century? Because there have been some pretty major changes. I mean, people are going to the Fargo Theater on a more regular basis. You're bringing in some pretty amazing films. Do you think it's a change in the way people perceive films and that the independent features are getting more attention? Or is it people like to be a part of the downtown culture? What do you feel? I
think it's all those things kind of coming together in perfect synergy. I think downtown has just boomed, as you guys know. Now it's a destination for nightlife and for dining, and we're fortunately a part of that. You can go out and have an awesome meal and then go see a cool new independent film. I I think especially with the addition of Theater 2, so now we have 2 screens, that's really been helpful for the Fargo Theatre. We can bring in more movies. And when we do have a concert or a comedian live on stage, we don't have to interrupt our movie schedule, which has allowed us to get some better and some more innovative product, I think. So I think it's kind of all of those things all coming together at once.
And Jade Presents has a big hand in that. I mean, they took the risk of saying we're going to really book out some dates with the Fargo Theatre. And, that kind of, when Tucker and I were there, is just kind of when they were dabbling into it and they were just starting. And so you'd see a concert every now and then. The concert lineup nowadays is amazing. It's almost like the quote unquote golden age is back again for the Fargo Theatre as a performance space as well as a film space. What are some things that you've done while you've been there that you're really proud of, that you're like, yes, this really clicked?
Well, I think the first big thing was our transition to digital projection. So when I first became executive director, we were still running 35, which I love and I will always love and will always keep 35 millimeter film projectors in the Fargo Theatre. But the industry was changing and we had to go digital if we wanted to continue to play new movies. So that was kind of the first big project. Was we fundraised and we found the right equipment and we outfitted both theaters with digital projection. So that was really important for the theater. And again, it kind of did take us forward into the next era of film.
Were you getting a lot of distributors who are saying like, well, we're not going to be putting this movie out on 35, and so?
Absolutely. Yeah. We were seeing it basically on a weekly basis. Fewer and fewer films
come out on 35 anymore?
There may be some select. To be honest, I haven't checked recently, but I would say if there are, it's probably just a few things, like perhaps if Christopher Nolan has a new film out because he's really passionate about film, maybe they'll put a few prints out into the universe. Maybe Roma came out on a few prints when it did play its few theatrical dates.
How ironic that Netflix, the streaming company, was passionate about celluloid. I know Quentin Tarantino likes to put stuff out. In fact, I think, was it
the Western he just did?
Yeah, the Hateful Eight came out in the 70s, wasn't it?
It did.
Although there was a big controversy around that too with him and Disney when that happened, and he actually went on Howard Stern and just trashed Disney because the cinema house in L.A. that it was supposed to play at, Disney stepped in and said, no, we're going to use that for Star Wars. And so Force Awakens was coming out, and he was supposed to have these runs at these cinema houses, and that got blocked because Disney said, no, we're using it. And they just came in and stomped him out, and he had to go do like a big ol', not that Disney cared, like, yeah, you're Quentin Tarantino, but we're Disney. Like, we own Marvel and Star Wars and pretty soon everything else.
Yeah, you don't fight the mouse.
No. You really don't fight the mouse.
No, you don't.
And it's a shame, but at the same side, like, Disney's put a lot of money into what they're doing, and they seem to be doing pretty well. So maybe you just say okay, you've won this one. I won't try for a holiday release again, Disney. Sorry.
So Emily, we're recording this a little ahead of time, but the day that this is coming out is the day before the first day of the 2019 Fargo Film Festival. And so people who are tuning in today who are planning on maybe going to see the festival this week, the Fargo Film Festival has been an institution in and of itself since, was its first year, 2001.
Yeah.
2001. Jage and I remember working the film festival when we were there and the sort of madhouse that it was, but having a lot of fun with that. So, what do we have to look forward to with this year's film festival?
Well, I hope, and this is something we kind of strive for every year, I hope there's a little bit of something for everybody. So if you're a movie lover of any kind, I hope that you can open up our program or check out our website and find something that would be appealing to you, whether it's, comedy or horror or drama, or we have some really out-of-the-box experimental stuff. It would be my hope that, obviously we have those fans that come and they spend the whole week there, they take a week off of work or they make travel plans and they spend the whole week watching movies at the Fargo Theatre.
Is it still called the Heck of a Deal Pass?
We went to the All Access Pass.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
We got too many questions about what is that?
It's a heck of a deal.
But there's a lot of people too that just kind of dip a toe in. They come and see maybe one evening or one afternoon. That's our goal, is to have a little something of everybody.
I'm always excited for the animation lineup because you don't really get a chance to see high quality animated short films that aren't, because they're not getting released nationally. And if you're not someone who knows where to look for them, it's hard to find them. So I always make a point to, at the very least, make sure I get in all the animations from the film festival. That's always some of my favorite stuff. What's some of your favorite stuff, JJ?
Believe it or not, so one of my favorite things that was done, I don't think it's done anymore, but they used to do a midnight of the student films. And I remember being the only person in the audience watching the student films, which is the first time I ever saw previous guest Aaron Baker's after school special. And then Christina Rios, who's a girl I went to high school with, showed up and she was like, JJ, is that you? And I'm like, yeah, Christina, what are you doing here? She's like, I came to see the student films, but I guess we're the only ones. I'm like, yep. And so we sat and watched an hour and a half of student films together, and I got to meet I made her like a really good friend that night. Christina Rios.
Great.
The 2-minute contest is top-notch stuff, and the fact that it's getting submissions from all over the place, I think, is really great. I could probably count on. I would need some extra hands, but like the number of films I've seen at the Fargo Film Festival that changed the way I thought of narrative storytelling or documentaries. I remember one from a few years ago I think it was called After the Credits, and so the film starts, and it was a short with a couple where the guy stops this girl from getting on a plane and they kiss, and then credits roll. So you see like 30 seconds of the ending of a movie, credits roll, and then after the credits are done, you see like what happens afterwards. And so for him, he doesn't have any money because he had just spent all of his money on a ticket to Fiji so he could get to the gate, and they can't get her luggage off of the plane. It was just it was a love letter to romantic comedies in the fact of like no one ever thinks about how this thing ends, right? So like at the end of The Princess Bride, everything's going to be good and great and amazing, right? Is it though? Like, is it really going
Life
to be?
intervenes.
Because they don't have a home,
Right?
where are they going to end
Is
up?
there going to go back to piracy? Is that what he's going to do after that?
And she's used to the lap of luxury at this point. So does she want to go back to be like a farmer's wife? But I think that's something that people always think of, like, well, what's the happily ever after supposed to be? So that one really will always get me entertained. And then I'm trying to think. There was after school special. I saw that at the Fargo Film Festival, which is one of my all-time favorites.
I'm pretty sure Jesus Christ Vampire Slayer was a midnight movie, and I went to that one, and that was a lot of fun. And I believe the very first line of the movie is, "Where have all the lesbians gone?" And I just remember thinking, that's awesome. That's fantastic.
Well, and some of the special, getting to meet and talk with the filmmakers, the Raiders, the guys who remade the shot for shot.
Which we want to get them on this show at some point. We got to get those guys back.
Absolutely. They finished it too.
Yes.
It's a long week. It's a very long week, especially, like for you, Emily, you're hosting things. I'm sure you're introing a bunch of stuff. There's all of the behind the scenes of like making sure everything works. Whoever your projectionist is going to be just shy of like stroke level.
Yep, having a mental breakdown. That's what I did. That's absolutely what I did, because our other two projectionists decided to take the week off.
Yeah.
And go somewhere.
Oh.
So I was the projectionist for the film festival that year. And it was like on day 5 or something. And I remember we were playing a film from an MSUM filmmaker, and I had not slept. And the movie was playing, and I remember talking to Mike Schultz, who was visiting me in the booth. And then at one point I hear Tom Branda go, "Tucker," over like this over the microphone, and I had let the movie play, and then it had looped back and was starting to play again.
Oh no!
And I was just so like, oh my god. So little moments happen like that. So make sure that you get the projectionist to sleep.
Well, we have 8 of them now. So,
that's way better.
So it is a little bit better. And with DCP, there's a lot of work on the front end to prepare all the files and everything, but it is a little less intensive than So during the actual festival, you're actually doing
Blu-rays
discs,
and DVDs, right? And 35 mil and 16 mil, and it was nuts.
Yeah, those were. Yeah, I remember those days. It's a little bit easier now with digital, as long as we can get all the filmmakers to send in the right stuff. But
you've got 2 screens you're monitoring.
We do. Thank goodness.
Do you ever one of my favorite things is to like sit in the lobby and wait for someone to sit through the first 10 minutes of something and be like, I think I'm supposed to be in the other theater, and be like, oh, you weren't looking for foreign films? Head down there.
They walk out of the experimental section looking a little dazed.
Yeah, right?
This is not what I thought. Yeah.
It's also amazing, too, because the Fargo Film Festival, I mean, the program is just, it gets thicker and thicker every single year. And there's no way to actually watch everything now, right? You've got to make some really hard decisions and say, I'm going to go to this, I'm going to go to this, and I'm going to miss this.
That is correct. So we're showing nearly 100 films in the course of 5 days. So yeah, most of the films only play once, especially the features. They basically all only play once. And so if you're coming to the entire week, you do have to look at the program and kind of create your own screening schedule. And yeah, some of the stuff you're not going to see. But I will say this year, quite a few of our features do have distribution. So they might end up playing theatrically down the road. They're just not out yet.
And another thing that's newer to the Fargo Film Festival is the special guests. And those become some really great nights where I think I just saw this year you've got the Napoleon Dynamite guys. And some tickets are already sold out for that. I think the meet and greets are already sold out.
Yeah, I think the VIP meet and greet flew out the very first day it went on sale.
That's
so
awesome.
People are excited to
just
dance.
Means that you're going to sell out the rest. I loved John Waters. That was one of my favorites. I mean, that one was top notch. When Matt Walsh came with High Road, that was just a real dream come true for me. And he did not remember me from when I took that UCB class, but that's just fine. But like Joe Latrulio is one of my all-time favorite comedians. And when he was there, I was like, oh, and I just assaulted him at Mezzaluna. And I'm like, hey, I think you're awesome. And when you were in Party Down, it was one of my favorite shows. And
We've had Rich Summer on this podcast in our 5th episode. And he, of course, had an infamous moment where he got beamed in the face by a toy car.
He did.
Shout out to Dana Del Val,
previous guest
and executive director of the Arts Partnership.
And it's funny because we were talking to him off air, and he was like, I know that they're going to bring up that car thing.
Everyone brings up that car thing.
And sure enough, that night when I went to go see his movie, they're like, oh, here we go, slow-mo.
That was... I was sitting in the front row, and that was one of the most terrifying moments of my life because I had just taken over as ED. I was pretty new into the director role, and he was like one of our guests of honor, and then someone beans him in the head with a metal car on stage, and I just started as fast as I could flipping through our insurance policy in my head, and I was like, oh my gosh. But it turned out okay.
Yeah. It's a fun story that we can keep talking about every time Rich comes back to town.
Emily, another really, really great and important part of the festival is you guys have this award called the Ted Larson Award. And you've got a really special guest who's receiving it this year. And can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh, absolutely. So the Ted M. Larson Award is obviously given in memory of Ted Larson, who's one of the founders of the film festival. And I think just kind of a giant in the FM arts community, the film community, and then he, like you said before, he and Rusty were known nationally for their contributions. So Ted didn't get to see the festival. He didn't. He sadly passed away before our first festival. So basically, our lifetime achievement equivalent is given every year in his name. And this year, the award's going to a man named Richard Edlund, so Mr. Edlund might not be necessarily a household name, but you are certainly familiar with the films that he worked on, whether it be the first 3 episodes of Star Wars.
And when we say
Raiders.
first 3, we mean 4 through 6.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Because we're going to get some angry nerds going like, they did not work on the first 3.
I'm sorry, nerds. Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, so,
Emily didn't
Star
mean it,
Wars
nerds. Back
and
off, nerds.
Empire and Jedi.
Hey,
Yeah.
nerds. Hey, nerds, back off.
Back off, nerds.
Back off, nerds. But yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so he obviously he was a part of Industrial Light and Magic, who were pioneers. They were absolutely pioneers, and they sort of brought my childhood to life. So just the idea of meeting someone who was a part of that is kind of goosebump inducing. He also worked on Rage of the Lost Ark for visual effects, Poltergeist, Ghostbusters. Yeah, his filmography is massive. So I recommend checking out his IMDb page, honestly, because if I tried to list everything that he had been a part of, I would fail.
And he's from this area originally, right?
He was born in Fargo, North Dakota, and I think that was kind of the hook that got him to come to our little festival.
Right.
He's a 4-time Oscar winner.
Yeah.
So this is a big honor to have him here.
Very big deal. And the Ted Larson Award, I mean, it's an important enough award that it actually doesn't get awarded every single year. Just because it's not something which I love that. I love that you folks don't feel like, oh, we got to find someone to give the Ted Larson Award to this year. Which if that's the way you do it, it kind of cheapens the award itself. So you've all been very deliberate as to who gets awarded that award. What in your mind does the Ted M. Larson Award mean, and what do you look for in the qualities of someone that you would like to bestow that honor upon?
Well, it's really looking for a career that has contributed in a meaningful way to like film production. Film education is definitely a part of it, a component of it, because Ted Larson was an educator. And then also film history or preservation. So some of them in the earlier years of the award, it went to some people who were really active in preservation or criticism, like Leonard Maltin. And so, yeah, we don't give it every year. It has to be meaningful. Ted meant too much to everybody that's involved with the festival to just kind of give it out without a real need or a real purpose. So we really do try to be intentional about that. And I hope that he would be proud to know that Richard Edlund's getting the award in his name this year.
I only ever met Ted once. It was my very first year taking summer Trelwood classes from Greg, who was my video production teacher when I was in high school. And so Greg brought us to MSUM, and Ted showed us. It was I think it might have been, I don't think it was City Lights. It was some black and white old silent film. And then we watched Hardware Wars, which is like the first sort of fan parody film of Star Wars that got made on Super 8 in like the early 80s or something like that. And it's super cheesy but fun. And I remember him talking to us about that and just being enamored with his charisma and presence and how he talked about movies when he lit up. You'd see the same thing with Rusty. Rusty'd be sitting there, and then as soon as you start talking about movies, he would just sort of ignite, and then there would be this passion there, and it was very palpable. And you can tell with the people who were students of Ted and students of Rusty have brought that passion with them. I mean, Greg Carlson, the moment he starts talking about film, I mean, it's like someone put 20 quarters in him, and he will talk with you about it, at length. And I love that. I absolutely love that. And we need people like that to keep things going, which is part of the history of this festival for sure.
Oh, I agree. Passion's behind it 100% for the last 19 years.
So who owns the festival?
So the Fargo Film Festival is actually produced by the Fargo Theatre. It's our largest annual fundraiser.
So I think it's important that people realize that, like, you're not giving, you're not attending, and your money's not going, to another state. This is what keeps the lights on. This is an important part of being a member of the Fargo Theatre and the Fargo community. It's not always easy as a nonprofit, especially in something like the Fargo Theatre, to remind people like, hey, we need contributions. Upkeep is huge. General maintenance on a building that is that old gets more expensive every single year. When you guys switched over to digital projection, I remember thinking like, God, is this gonna happen? Like, that's a huge expense. Because it's not just buying a piece of equipment. It's getting a piece of equipment. It's getting everything set the way it's supposed to be set. Walk us through a little bit about like what it's like on a day-to-day basis to be in charge of the Fargo Theatre and like some of the daily woes and successes that you see.
So there's no normal day at the Fargo Theatre, as I'm sure most of you guys remember, which I think is why I like the job. I don't think I go anywhere and do the same thing every day. But yeah, every day, especially in the winter, we're fighting massive heating bills, but we're also celebrating because we landed a booking of a film we're really excited about, and now we get to show it to the community and be a part of that. For instance, just earlier this week, we just found out that our very ancient boiler is not going to be with us much longer.
I'm actually surprised it's still here.
Well, we've done our best to keep it going, but so now as of this summer, we have to start strategizing on how to get a new one in and all of that. But at the same time, yeah, there's a fabulous comedy that like keeps us laughing, and we all kind of keep each other going with our passion. So yeah, there's the good and the bad, I think, with any nonprofit.
When we had previous guest Dave Rano on, one of the things we talked about was there was not a single shift I had at the Fargo Theatre where someone didn't wander in and tell me, I worked here and so, or I helped put in some of the duct work in 92.
Yes.
And they all want to share their experience of being at the Fargo Theatre with you. Or you'd have somebody who just got off of a train and they're like, well, I saw the marquee and I came to it, and so could you tell me like what's cool about this area? So I've been pushing Charlie Johnson for years. I'm like, why don't you set up a mini CVB at the Fargo Theatre? Like that should be your downtown office and pay them handsome royalties because you're getting money from the state.
I will say the one thing I do not miss is changing the marquee in the wintertime.
Oh, no.
I do not miss that at all.
You know, if you guys ever decide to go for like a digital marquee in any way, I bet you just the employees alone would pay for it.
Yeah, no, I mean, that would be a dream, but I think the community would not enjoy if all of a sudden one of our most popular landmarks was now some sort of like an obnoxious digital like.
But I remember you could sell Pepsi
I would be
ads on it.
Warmer and happier, that's for sure.
I remember though, like one time we ran out of E's because they kept shattering, so we had to take threes for that weekend. And Marky'd be like, "How come there are threes up there? Because we need to order more E's because they've been shattering for some reason. They're a very used letter, so they go up all the time."
They literally ice right up to the board, and then you have to try to chip them out to get them down.
And of course, downtown has like 30 bars, and so when you're changing it, it's usually at night so that the right marquee is up for the next day. So you're getting people walking, "Hey, what's up?"
It should be noted that if you've never changed a letter-based marquee like that, there's two ways you can do it. One is with a stick with a cup on the end that you suction. And so if you're getting a letter down, you thwap it, and then you have to try and manipulate the letter outside of the two pieces that are holding it in. Or you get up on a ladder and you go up. Now, the problem on a ladder is you're always going to try and stretch your arm so that, like, how many letters can I get up before I need to make the next? And sometimes the title would be so long, you'd be like, I hate the person who titled this film. Or you get a nice short title and you're like, yes, awesome, sweet.
Let's play this movie forever. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Or you have to figure out like
Fat Greek Wedding.
Or you figure like, okay, do you remember having a slip of paper and having to figure out, okay, what's the best way to, because it's not all going to fit on the marquee. So what can I condense some of these words down to that make sense so someone knows what they're going to, but also like uses letters?
Do you guys still have black hoodies for all the employees?
Yeah, we have like little black zip-up fleecy things to try to keep them warm because it gets cold in that lobby in the winter.
Because we called ourselves sort of like the black hoodie gang when we all worked there, because we all had black hoodies, and then sometimes we would all just go out drinking together right after work was done, and so like we'd just be in all of our Fargo Theater, go down to the VFW and get some beers.
Do you still have a mountain of Christmas ornaments?
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a trove in the basement.
Don't forget that, people. You can buy Fargo Theater glass Christmas ornaments. They're gorgeous.
One thing we got to cover, and at some point we got to get more in depth on this, is I think the crown jewel of the Fargo Theater is the Wurlitzer, the mighty Wurlitzer. There are not many left in existence. If you ever get the chance to take a tour of the whole Wurlitzer system, it will blow your mind, because you know, if you're just sitting in the audience and you see someone playing it, you think that's the Wurlitzer. That's 2% of the actual body of the instrument. You actually have massive sections of the building that house it. Could you talk about the Wurlitzer a bit and its place in Fargo Theater history?
I would agree with your comment about it being kind of the crown jewel. We are so lucky to have that instrument and to have people in this community that know how to take care of it, because it requires a lot of maintenance. And then also people that can play it. It takes years to learn how to play. So like you said, it is just the actual console that you see when someone's playing it is just a fraction of it. Lance Johnson, our master organist, always says that if you were to take the entire organ, all of the pipes down, and disassemble them, it would fill 3 train cars.
Oh.
I think it's the largest musical instrument on Earth, but the nerds can fact check me, I guess.
Are you saying the Wurlitzer in general or the one that you have?
Oh, no, just the Wurlitzers in general, especially when they build out pipes, because Lance, 3 years ago, built out some extra pipe work, too, so it's even bigger. And I think it might be the largest musical instrument on Earth. It certainly looks massive.
It certainly at least has to be the most complicated.
Yeah, I would
How many
believe so.
rows of keys, and they all do different things, and buttons and pedals you have to hit at the same time. And
yeah, there's 4 different keyboards, and then over 100 buttons around the outside for different sound effects and different voices for the organ. And then, all those pedals on the floor. I've never counted them, but there's a lot.
How often can you hear and see the Wurlitzer get played at the Fargo Theatre?
It's played every weekend, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, as long as we have an organist before the 7:00 movie. So you have some unique seating music before your movie. It's played before special events. It's played before classic film series, and definitely throughout the week of the film festival as well. And then they still do silent movie night once a year. So they'll play a silent film and accompany it on the organ.
Which is real. I mean, that is something to see. If you've never been to something like that, it is amazing. Is Ryan the young man who's recently started playing? And he was a Don Quixote at Fargo South. That's where I got to know him originally.
Oh, okay.
But it is amazing and wonderful to me to see somebody that young who gets passionate about the Wurlitzer. And boy, oh boy, he can play it like there's no tomorrow.
Oh, he's incredible. Yeah, so Ryan Hardy is one of our youngest organists right now. And he just placed this last summer second at a national competition. I think the kid's a bit of a genius, honestly. He's at NDSU, but he started playing.
To play a Wurlitzer.
Oh, I think so too. Yeah, because you have to have so many different things going on.
You got to be something special.
Because you're not just you're performing it, is what it is, right? So when you're playing that, you got to have okay, I'm going to have the whistle here, and this, and so you're making it all happen. I've got a recording that I think Lance did in the 90s of a Mary Poppins medley that'll make your heart just sing. It is amazing to hear that, and it's just such a cool thing to have there. And I know so many visiting artists are dumbfounded by it. I remember going to a Hold Steady concert, and they used the Wurlitzer during the concert, and you're never going to see another show like that. When the Hold Steady get out there and they jam out on the Wurlitzer at the same time, oh man, blows your mind.
Absolutely. It's so cool watching musicians or visiting filmmakers come in. It's like Rufus Wainwright most recently with somebody else who was like, oh, is that a Wurlitzer? Can I touch it? So that makes you feel kind of cool. Well, it's something unique we have here in Fargo. So.
I mean, basically the building is part of the instrument. It really is. It's an instrument that really has dug its claws into the insides of the walls. It's part of the building. I mean, that, and it's living history. They're not making new ones as far as I can tell. As far as I know, and there's a Wurlitzer Society that has to basically keep it alive and keep going. It makes me think of, you hear about stories of, lost languages from old civilizations, and they've got the one speaker left or the two speakers left, but they don't like each other, so they don't want to talk to each other. And it's sad to think that once they're gone, that has disappeared. And this art form of the Wurlitzer is something that we really need to keep intact, and it is absolutely worth. You need to sit in the building and hear it.
I agree.
It's not something that you can just listen to a recording of. You can't appreciate it that way.
No, because when you're in the building, you can literally feel it in your chest. You can feel you hear the pipes come to life. You hear the air rush through them, and that's kind of a unique experience. But the instrument, it's an experience live. Absolutely.
So, as time progresses, are there certain things that you're excited about to add to the Fargo Theatre? Things that are kind of on your wish list of gosh, we'd like to be able to do this. We'd like to add this. Things that maybe there's someone listening to this who's got $500,000 that they want to just hand over one day.
Well, I have a list for you then. Yeah,
oh, good, yeah.
We do. I mean, while we are kept pretty busy just running, we do have a wish list. I suppose thinking really big someday would be to add a third auditorium. But there are all sorts of smaller things on the wish list, from adding, basically bringing back an educational program for children that revolves around film production would be something I would love. There's just a lot of things we want to do. I really don't even know where to start, honestly.
You know what? So another really great Fargo Theatre memory for us is working the Blenders concerts.
Oh gosh,
Because those are always just a riot. Because I mean, the Blenders in town here, I mean, it's like Elvis or something whenever they come into whenever they're doing their annual show, and yeah, they just take over the theater for a couple of days. And if you work at the theater, you end up getting to hang out with the Blenders and seeing them, and they're a very important part of the history of this town too, and of that theater. So it's been a while now since I've worked a Blenders show. So what is it like working a Blenders show these days? Is Ryan as big of a diva as he used to be?
Oh no, actually they're really easy to get on with. They just ask for some popcorn sometimes.
Nice.
I mean, the guys are great. But yeah, it's they're up to 7 shows now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and they basically sell them all out. So I think if anything, their popularity has grown, which is kind of incredible.
Right.
Considering, but yeah, they're fun nights. They're cold nights, but joyful. And a lot of the staff, a lot of us that have been working there for some time, we have the choreography down. For the songs that they do every year, so we're like dancing in the lobby.
Sealed, delivered from your...
You're like all wrapped up. Okay. One of the best things about the Fargo Theater is the fact that the marquee represents our town. What's it like being the steward of that marquee? Is it difficult? I know recently you guys had a thing where like, please don't include us in your political ads.
It's the most photographed object in probably North Dakota.
Yeah, the forum did say that recently, and I would say just from my practical experience, that feels true. We have people out there every single day taking photos, whether it be just tourists or we get a lot of wedding parties out there who want, their photo with the marquee and that kind of stuff. That's an honor. That's cool. We're an icon for this community. Mm-hmm. And we take that really seriously, and we try to do our best to keep the marquee looking good and fully lit with, hundreds and hundreds of light bulb changes every year.
Yeah, that's super fun, isn't it?
It helps that it says Fargo on it, too.
It does, yeah.
That's a big part.
Yeah. But then, every once in a while, there is that flip side of somebody maybe using it in a way that could be detrimental to us. And so, as a nonprofit, of course, we're relying on donors and support. And so the fact that somebody could use that image without our permission and then alienate some of our supporters or donors when that was never our intention, that's a tricky line to walk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you guys own the copyright on that design?
The Fargo Theatre's marquee is not trademarked. It isn't. It's a conversation that I've been having with our board on and off since I took over. Different people on the board feel differently. I go back and forth, if I'm being honest, about what to do with that. I want the community to feel ownership for the marquee. I want them to say, yeah, that represents us, our town. But is there a part of me that's really scared that a hate group could use our image to promote their activities, and then that could be catastrophic for the theater? Yeah, and that is something we play out those scenarios at board meetings, and we talk about what that would look like, what that would do.
I even think just monetarily, well, what's to stop me from making a T-shirt that has the Fargo Theater marquee on it and selling it to Gap? Right?
Yeah.
And then be like, oh, I'm not going to give any money to you guys.
Right.
Like, I'm going to keep it all for myself because I'm a T-shirt impresario.
And that is a little frustrating. So, like, the folks at Unglued are amazing. They actually give us a percentage of every sale of an item that has our image on it.
Cool.
So,
Nice.
so either
Shop
if you're
at
not going to
Unglued.
buy at the Fargo Theater, if you want something with our image on it, then buy at Unglued or a store like them. But, of course, not everybody does that. And then people maybe aren't thinking what it takes to keep that marquee looking lovely, keep the theater thriving, and all of that.
Well, when you're a nonprofit, I mean, you're always trying to keep your head above water. That's just what it is to be a nonprofit. Mm-hmm. You don't have the same avenues that other things do, and you have a different mission, and it's kept going through love and stewardship. That's how it happens. So that's awesome that Unglued is doing that.
When you arrive at something like the Fargo Theater, which is bordering on 100 years old,
Yeah,
is that right?
Going to be 93 in like a month.
Oof.
Yeah.
People take for granted that it's just there, right?
Yes.
Like my whole life, the Fargo Theater's been there. And one of the best, sort of last minute fundraisers is when Margie was like, I'm going to turn the lights off. If we don't get X amount of dollars, I'm going to turn the lights off. And I see you kind of cringe a little bit when I say that. Because I know some people were pretty pissed about that, but I'm like, you know what? Remind people that they have a stake in the Fargo Theater. And so it's where you go see the Blenders concert every year. And even if you're not going to see movies on a regular basis, it is a part of our community, and it's important that it's there. because there is a really realistic idea that like this may not exist if people don't take a stake in what it is. I think of like Theater B's. How many different locations has Theater B had over the years?
I think technically it's probably 5 or 6, but this would be our third. No, I guess I would just technically call this our second home. Is what I'd call it, a long term.
Because you had a little nomadic, right?
Yeah, a little nomadic, and we've been in a few places for more than a year that you could count. But I would really call this our second home. But overall, it's been 5 or 6.
But I'm sure there was a conversation where it was like, okay, we're losing this building. Was it time to close shop on this thing?
Yeah.
Luckily you guys didn't do that.
Right.
But
I mean, it's hard enough being a nonprofit. Now trying to be a nonprofit theater production company. I mean, that's extra tough on top of that. Right.
And and there's so many great nonprofits nowadays, and everyone's going after the same dollar. And you're getting people who are supporting not only local charities, but national charities. Finding that niche for that dollar is important, which is why it's great that you guys have the film festival that, is 18 plus years strong. And it's a great fundraiser for you. It's a great opportunity for you to keep reminding people like we're a part of the international culture of film.
Right.
What was the year that you did all the projecting, and then they had the filmmaker who only spoke Spanish, and they needed to get the interpreter? Do you remember?
I can't remember. Yeah, I'm not sure what year that was. I can't remember.
That was a lot of fun because there was that day when he didn't understand that there was a lunch panel, and so he just sat with us, and we tried to kind of like
That's
speak.
right.
We tried to speak what Spanish we knew, and then what he knew in English, and we all had chili together.
Didn't someone who was like a Olympian buy you a really expensive shot at the Hodo?
No. I made out with that Olympic volleyball player at the Hodo.
I thought someone bought you a really expensive shot.
Someone did. Her name was Tana Frederick, and she was part of a filmmaking team. She bought me a shot of Louis XIV.
That's true.
That was pretty awesome. That was a good night. I don't remember how that night ended, but it was fun. It was a ton of fun. Emily, as things progress, do you ever have a desire to do another stage show, or is there just not enough time in your life?
For me personally,
Yeah.
I miss theater. I love theater. I always have. Hopefully someday, maybe I can get back into the swing of things.
You should. Why not, right?
I'm a little scared, if I'm being honest.
Oh, that's good.
I haven't auditioned for anything for a very long time.
Good. As you get older, though, it's nice because, like, you know what role you're auditioning for. Like, that's nice. When you audition for Trollwood, you're like, I could literally probably be any character. But, like, you settle into this point of where you're like, well,
JJ
I know
gets
I'm playing
typecast
the
a
mom.
lot, so that's why he's saying that.
Yep. Like, well, I mean, you're not going to play, the kid anymore. Like, you're playing like the adult characters now. So you're like, okay, so I can whittle this down. When I audition for like the Music Man, I know I'm not going to be the kid anymore.
Yeah, I'm always looking at the cast list for like the homeless Campbell Soup kid.
Yep.
And I'm like, oh, that's who I could play.
Yeah, there you go.
Get me into that one.
Tucker is really hoping that Year in Town is like a show he can audition for. Yep. What's it like to interact with people in the way that you do now as a professional, when it's sort of like you represent the Fargo Theatre and going out and asking people for things, like saying, Bell Bank, can we count on you to continue to be a sponsor for this, that, or the other thing? Or, gosh, would anyone like to be a part of this next level of fundraising? Is it difficult to go out and have that conversation where it's always going to come back to being like, and could I get a check from you before I
Yeah, so of course that's always nerve-wracking, right? But I did have 3 years to learn from Margie Bailey.
And she's so good at it.
She's so good at it. And she saw that I was nervous about that element and that I was feeling a little unsure. And she taught me, I think, the thing. I literally say this in my head over and over again before I walk into rooms where I need to ask for money. If you love something, they will feel it. And so if you can just really radiate your passion and your enthusiasm for something, not only can it carry you over your own insecurities as far as that being a hurdle or your nervousness, but they'll feel it immediately. and then they'll want to be a part of that. Because
that's
it's
awesome.
infectious when somebody cares about something. It's like what you were saying about movies earlier. When you see somebody light up like that, you want to be a part of that too.
Absolutely.
It'd be really nice if like our governor's kids were really into movies, and then he could just be like, give me some. Are you excited for Block E to be built in downtown Fargo? Because it's gonna drastically change the way like your business is done. I don't know. I mean, you won't see as much sun anymore, I don't think.
That's true. Yeah, I think it's going to be great. I'm, of course, obviously looking forward to the construction being over, but I think at the end it'll all be worth it. I'm hopeful.
What do you tell people who are like, downtown Fargo, there's no place to park?
Well, right now that's sometimes true.
Yeah, we even fight construction workers for parking spots at our studio here.
Yeah, in fact, did you? I don't know if you saw this. This is some inside baseball, but it's gonna be a timed parking thing out here.
Yep.
So I was like, what? So you're gonna tell someone who's working like with a kiln, like, you gotta come on, you gotta move your car. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, parking right now, I'm not going to pretend like it isn't a problem because we're trying to fight for more ramps downtown. So yeah, there's a need. We need more parking downtown. The Rocco ramp has been great, and we do definitely refer people to it on a regular basis. But I also hear, it's full. So,
but like, let's also put the cards on the table, right? I lived in Chicago for a while. Being able to park in front of the store or movie theater you
Right.
want to go to is not the norm.
It's not.
People
It's not.
normally are walking blocks at a time. It's the people who are like, well, I'm not going to go to the mall today because I can't get in the first 5, spaces in front of the main door. What? Are you kidding me?
I agree. I think there needs to be some like shifts in attitudes too.
Yeah.
If you're within like 5 blocks of where you're going, I think that's pretty acceptable. I know in the winter when it gets really cold, that can be rough, but
See, that would have been that guy's Skyway. Like, if we could get the Skyway to attach to the Fargo Theater somehow. Like, if you could just go down into the marquee and then get into the Fargo Theater. Also, the Fargo Theater has JJ and I's favorite public restroom in it. It has Fargo's best and worst public restroom. That is both of them.
do you mean the accessible one on the
So
mirror
that's
door?
the worst.
Okay.
That's the worst. The best one is in the upper men's room, obviously. That's where we're going.
Sure.
And it's the larger stall next to the frosted window.
Oh, yeah.
Like, 'cause it's nice, the nice
Oh,
temperature
it's so
control
good.
there. And in the daytime, you get a nice diffused light in.
Yep.
It feels nice and private. Take your time in there.
Well, good.
So if you're
Thanks
at
for putting that out there.
If you're a dude and you're near the Fargo Theater, buy a ticket. You don't just get to walk. You gotta buy a ticket, get a soda, and then go use the bathroom.
It
It's
is
awesome.
top notch.
Fantastic.
Thank you for that endorsement.
Because that's the other thing you hear at the Fargo Theater all the time too. Like, can I just use the bathroom? Can I just use the bathroom? Can I use the bathroom? Be like, this is not for everybody. This is not for everybody, bro.
Well, and the thing too is when you're working there, the amount of soda you have access to is ridiculous.
Were you working on the day? So when they were building the condos that are now next door to you in the Herberts and Gerberts and Sandy's Donuts, they broke into a pipe by accident, and it was like the water in, and they got sand in the pipe, and even a single grain of sand can mess up the like automatic flusher.
Oh.
Like they're the flushing handles, and so none of the men's room like worked at all. And it was the night of a big. Do you remember this at all?
No, I don't know. This
I remember Prairie Rose freaking out because it was the night of a huge event, and then the men's room goes down, and then we're like, okay, well, we're gonna shuttle everyone over to the ladies' room, and then that overloads the ladies' room, so then we don't have any bathrooms at all. So then we're like, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? And so someone's like, could we call someone at Warner Insurance and maybe like let them come in and use the bathroom? But like they were all at the lake. It was. I have like the panic that ensued was. I mean, I'm so glad I that wasn't my job to have to deal with that. I just had to be like, sorry, there's no bathroom. Sorry, there's
Have
no
you guys
I think you've just created a new recurring nightmare for me.
Yeah.
bathroom.
Also,
a single grain of sand.
Single grain of sand.
And then they had to shut off the water to be able to like clean that. So that means like no pop anymore. What else? No running water. So technically, you're not allowed to produce any food. So we couldn't make popcorn from health code. Oh, it was just awful.
Also, have you password protected your internet network yet?
Well, we have a internet sponsor, Consolidated Communications, so we
Excellent.
have a free Wi-Fi for everybody that's in the building that's attending a movie or a concert or something like that. But then we have dedicated.
Are your printers hooked up to the guest Wi-Fi? That was an
my
issue.
gosh,
that was
I
an
hope
issue
not.
for us.
It was a
I've
big
never
issue.
seen anything. People would just print random things.
So I think that there was someone who had a
JJ
printer.
in trouble because they
Yeah,
thought it was
they
JJ.
thought I did it. Somebody across the street must. So that when that Wi-Fi was just open back in the day,
Yeah.
the people across the street, it must have reached over there so they could use the internet all the time. And then one day, somebody printed some very graphic things, like sent it all to the printer, hundreds of pages.
Oh my gosh.
And so Margie came in that day, and she ended up having to take the rest of the day off because she was so just
she
disgusted.
thought it was JJ for
Yep.
some reason.
And so I got called in. And they're like, why would you do this? And I was like, do what? What are you talking about? Like, why would you print all of this? It wasn't me. And then I think that there was still a question of whether it was. And so then Prairie had like the printer people come and they go like, well, this doesn't match his IP address. So it didn't come from him. Although, did you know that these 28 other people are regularly using your Wi-Fi connection and like using it for this? And because at one point it got shut down because someone was using it to illegally download
Yep.
movies.
Yep.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
not good.
We were
Yeah.
behind the curve at that time
Way
of,
behind.
of internet security.
So
I'm really
that's
glad
like-
you guys have changed things.
It was like, let's get we need a password, and I believe the password at that time was popcorn. So we really thought outside the box.
You know, speaking of popcorn, the Fargo Theater also does have the best movie popcorn.
It is.
Okay, I agree. I'm very enthusiastic about our popcorn. We still buy it from Tochi.
Okay.
We get the good stuff, the natural stuff. And then we pop it in 100% pure coconut oil.
Yep.
So I think that's why it's so good.
But then the butter is so good. Oh my God, that butter.
Are you allowed to use the word butter?
I'm using it now, and people can deal. People can deal.
One thing that I like about the Fargo Theater is the ownership people take over their snacks at the Fargo Theater. So there was a woman who brought her own melted butter, and she would, I said, well, I can't put it on for you. It's like, I know. She'll open her little thing, and then she'll put it on and go for that. The people who love, like halfway through, dump this thing of Junior Mints in there. Like, okay, sounds good, guys. It is a lot of fun. This is something I want to ask. Have you guys discussed having like beer and wine? Because that's a huge thing for movie theaters right now. Is this discussion of whether or not they should be serving alcohol?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. That is, again, another conversation I have with the board somewhat frequently. So we do serve beer, wine, things like that on concert nights. But that involves bringing somebody in that has like a traveling liquor license and they get an e-permit for that day. But us, the Fargo Theater, we still can't directly sell wine or beer. And we've tried. I think it was about 3 years ago when the Marcus Theaters were also really pushing the city commission. We had some lawyers on our board, and we all got together and we worked really hard to create what we thought would actually work for us and that could get passed through the city commission. Honestly, we probably aren't interested in serving beer and wine every single night, but we would certainly love to be able to offer it when we want to. But we just haven't been able to get the support, honestly.
It's such an interesting thing because, in my opinion, I don't think that beer and wine has a place for just casual movie. Like when I go to see a movie, I don't ever think about I want a glass of wine or a bottle of beer. And of course, everyone thinks like, well, people are just going to get rowdy. They're going to get drunk during the movie. Nobody's coming out and being like, could I get 6 beers and like, bring them back and then enjoying Stan and Ollie while they're sipping on barley sodas.
Right.
But it does kind of beg that question of like, okay, so what is the next step in the movie going process? I went to the new Mall of America movie theaters that just opened.
Oh, yeah.
And they're ultra luxury and you get a table and they make burgers and all this stuff like before you go in. I hated that experience. It's like, I don't want to go to a restaurant and then like sit through a movie because you're hearing people and then like using bottles of ketchup and to me and then like, opening up beers. That drives
I feel
me.
like I'm there. There's a real theater of the mind going on right now. I can smell the popcorn.
See, popcorn is fine. I'm all about popcorn and pop and candy, but I am not about full course like meals in a movie theater.
Well, one thing too about going to just a regular movie theater now that really grinds my gears is after having to pay an enormous ticket price and pay a lot of money for popcorn, then at a typical regular movie theater, I'm sitting through at least half an hour of commercials and then previews. And so the movie that starts at 9 o'clock is actually starting at 9:45, just about, it seems like. And I know that that's the industry that they're in, that they have to, because Emily is going yes and no.
Yes and no.
Yes
yeah.
and no.
So like,
but I don't get that at the Fargo Theater.
You don't, and
Which is
as long as
awesome.
I'm there, you won't, because I'm actually
Hell
like,
yes.
don't get me on my
Preach it.
soapbox
Preach
about
it.
this.
No, please get on your soapbox.
Yeah, no,
about
I
it.
don't like 30-minute pre-shows. I think I know people enjoy trailers. I like trailers. I want to see a couple of trailers before I see a movie, and that we do that. We have 2 or 3 trailers, and sometimes like maybe a membership ad. Give your money to the Fargo Theater. But we try to keep our pre-show to 7 minutes. Just give people time to get settled, and then they can still see those trailers. And sometimes with some movies, there are required trailers. Disney says you have to play this trailer before this movie. But the 20, 30-minute pre-show packages that you're talking about, there's just no way that they're all required. So
Right.
that is a choice that someone's making to encourage concession sales.
Got it. Okay.
To support their other movie, upcoming titles. And it irks me pretty hard.
Well, so let's explain a little bit about how the movie industry works. So people think I go and I spend $15 on a ticket. How much money are you keeping from that ticket? How much does that stay local?
So if anyone has ever heard the expression that movie theaters make their money at the popcorn stand, that is absolutely true. Concessions are the lifeblood of any movie theater because depending on the film, a large percentage of the box office goes right back to the distribution company. So people like Walt Disney or Warner Brothers, Paramount, companies like that. A lot of our little indies, the percentage that they get back is like 40%. So we're keeping around 60% of every ticket. The big blockbusters, guys, those can go up into the high, 80% of like opening day of an Avengers ticket can go back to Disney. So the movie theaters are really hoping you're coming through the door to go see the new Avengers film, but then you're buying popcorn and soda and candy and yeah.
And I think that's one of the reasons you're seeing more ads before movies too, because the theater itself sells those ads. So those like fake Chevy ads.
Yes.
These are not actors. Bullshit. The second you pay them, they're actors. And how do those people keep falling for this? I recognize that guy. So, but that's another way that they're making money to kind of keep their bottom line all right. But it does get to be a little much. Is there with trailers? Do you get some discretion about what trailers you're going to play? So, for example, we know we're going to open this in a couple weeks, so we're going to attach this trailer. You said that there's some you're required to do, but you've got some room above and beyond that.
Yeah, and that's kind of fun. Sometimes just what we have to play is required, and we just play what's required, and that's fine. But it is kind of fun trying to curate some trailers sometimes, pick out what you're hoping to bring in. Sometimes people see a trailer at the Fargo Theater, and they assume that means we're absolutely getting it. That is not always the case. Sometimes it's just optimism on my part. But yeah, it's kind of fun.
This question was asked to me by a couple of high school kids after I told them about my favorite thing in high school is going to the midnight movies. Any chance you guys are ever going to bring that series back? Yeah,
so we've been dipping a toe in, and I think we're going to keep playing with it. I don't think it's going to be a weekly series probably ever again, where it was every Friday and Saturday we'd show the midnight movie. But I think we're going to try to do it at least once a quarter.
Nice!
So we had some luck. We recently did some cult stuff like The Room, and attendance was great. People were excited. So I think it'll be more like a quarterly basis, but I love the midnight. Those are some of my earliest memories of going to the Fargo Theater too. When I was in college, we'd go to the midnight movies. And
I remember being on there was sort of like a board, a midnight movie theater board that Margie would rely on because she understood that these were probably going to be movies that she didn't really have much reference for because they were tapping into pop culture and stuff like that. And the one movie that I had to fight for, and we ended up getting, was the first Ninja Turtles movie.
And you brought your turtles to the theater.
I brought my turtles to the theater, and that was right when TMNT was coming out, that animated movie.
Yeah.
So that was in the news, and I was like, listen, my generation, who are all in college at that time, we grew up on Ninja Turtles, and if you have this here, we're going to fill the place. And she didn't knew much about what the Ninja Turtles were. But she's like, you know what, I'm going to trust you. You're a nerdy guy who is tapped in. And yeah, we had a full house that night for a midnight movie, which was pretty sweet. And it was fun to watch that on 35 mil again. Because the only time I'd seen it before on 35 mil was as a kid in 1989 in the movie theater. So that's something I'd love to be able to see happen.
I love
again.
the group response to seeing a movie. Like every time we showed The Big Lebowski, people dressed up like the dude or Walter, and inevitably you found a bunch of empty cups that had White Russians in them afterwards.
Monty Python and the Holy Grail, people are saying lines the whole time at the screen. Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. And that's the thing, right? Because once a movie becomes midnight movie worthy, it's more of an interaction piece than anything.
Have you ever done Rocky Horror?
We do Rocky once a year.
Okay.
Every October. It's the Friday before Halloween.
Oh, awesome.
This year we actually sold it out, guys. We had 800 and some people at
Yes.
It's one of those things where we're probably going to have to add another screening next year. And costumes. There were probably hundreds of people in the costume contest was insane, and props everywhere. And that is like the ultimate interactive movie experience. And you always get a few people who come out saying, "Well, people were talking through the whole thing."
Yeah,
but that's not the point with Rocky. Like that's
You're like, this is an experience. Yeah. How do you guys decide your classic series?
We create a master list in-house. A few staff members. Most of our part-time concession and projection workers are also like film majors. They're either currently studying film or they're just out of school. So we create a list and then we go to work with our booker to see what's available. Because not everything, we certainly can't just pick whatever we want and put it up on screen. We have to see what's available from the distribution companies and what we can afford and all those things. But we try to offer a little something of everything. I try to always put one Hitchcock film in every session because he's my favorite. So I guess that is director's choice on that one. But we always try to do a musical and a comedy and a drama. So we have a little variety.
Well, both Ted and Rusty would probably be like, that's a good rule. That's a really good rule.
I think so, yeah. Rusty's...
It's well balanced, right?
Yeah.
As we wrap this thing up, if you've never been to the Fargo Theatre, do yourself a favor and go check it out. If you've got kids, bring your kids. It's an experience more than anything else. Emily, anything you want to tell people? Like maybe they should go to fargotheater.org and get a membership?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you can support us a couple different ways. We take donations online, but I think the memberships are the best way to go because then you get really fun perks. You get passes, you get discounts, but then you're also helping the Fargo Theatre. So that's the best win-win, I think, for everybody. Or you can come to the film festival because that's, like I said, our big fundraiser. So that's a great way to go, too.
Get yourself an all-access pass.
Indeed.
And if this is a filmmaker, if they're listening to this after the 2019 Fargo Film Festival, how can they find information about maybe sending in their film for
yes, please
consideration?
We accept submissions. They'll probably open up at the end of April. That's usually when we get them going on a website called Film Freeway. It's a clearinghouse for film festival submissions. A lot of big festivals use it all over the country, and we do too. So they can submit their work into competition through filmfreeway.com.
Does Without a Box even exist anymore?
I think this is their last year. They're closing up shop.
Okay.
Yep. So I think Film Freeway is going to run the game now.
I hope so. I remember the days of Without a Box, and at the time it was like, oh, this is cool. But Film Freeway, when they came in, really seemed to figure out a lot of the kinks in the system. So that's awesome.
Awesome. Thanks, Emily.
Thank you for having me. This has been awesome.
A huge thanks to Natalie Deutsch of Hatch Realty for sponsoring this podcast. Folks, if you're looking to buy or sell a home, contact Natalie Deutsch today because Natalie Deutsch is not only a previous podcast guest, she's somebody who's going to care enough to sell your property for top dollar. She's also going to find you the best price possible if you're purchasing a new home. Last year on average, Natalie earned her clients $4,000 over list price on their homes and sold them faster than the market average. On average, Natalie's selling a home every 3.74 days. That's 2 homes a week. Those numbers don't lie. Find out why Natalie is one of the top agents in this entire market. Get a hold of her today, Natalie at hatchrealtyfm.com. You can also call 701-388-9338 or go on to livefargomoorhead.com. That's livefargomoorhead.com. Read all of her amazing reviews and then listen to her episode of JJ Meets World. Thanks again to Natalie Deutsch of Hatch Realty. That's going to wrap it up for today's show. If you enjoyed this episode of JJ Meets World and would like to help us continue to produce 2 new episodes every week, you can donate to our Patreon. Check out patreon.com/JJ Meets World and donate today. Even as little as $1 a month can go a long way. Visit our website at www.jjmeetsworld.com or hit up our social media. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all the sites the kids are using these days. If you'd like to stay up to date on new episodes of JJ Meets World, you can find us on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, YouTube, or wherever you consume the podcast that you love. JJ Meets World is produced every week by Tucker Lucas. You can find out more about Tucker's work by checking out www.moonbasemaria.com. If you want to get in touch with your host with the most, go to linebenders.com, and you can find direct contact info for JJ.